In the Deacom software, there's multiple different ways of identifying the cost of a particular product. Now, from the basic level, we can work in average cost, FIFO or actual cost. We also could look at standard costing. Other additional costs that we can look at is things such as future costs and also additional loaded or calculated costs in the system. So what we're identifying here for an individual item, down below would be those current costs or the accounting costs that we're using. So the accounting cost is the costing method that we would have chosen. Could be average, FIFO, or standard. We're also identifying any labor, burden, and additional material burden and freight costs that may go into that product. Now, as we see here, these are grayed out. So what this is telling us is this is actually rolling up from a bill of material. So we're collecting more detailed costs down to the specific bill of material level. We also can start to identify any specific pricing that may go as part of this costing as well. You'll see margin show up here. And we also can start to identify any additional future cost buckets that may be applied. Future cost buckets are good for planning the future state of that product. So if costs are going down or costs are going up, we can actually see how that may impact our margins going forward. As I mentioned, we can drill this down to a detailed bill of material level, where we can identify the specific ingredients or raw materials that go into making a product. And with that, we can start driving the specific material cost of that product up to a specific unit. As we get into more detail, we can start looking at specific routings. So what a routing is going to tell us is the specific operations being performed on specific machines or work centers. And based on the number of units that can be done in a certain period of time, we can now start to build out those machine costs, labor costs, which go into that piece cost of that particular product. Now, these are typically set up as your standards. This is how we're going to measure how we did through the process. Then what we can do in the system is we can start to identify the actual labor costs that go into the product. We can run specific reporting around that to identify any changes that may need to be made to these specific standards. These, as I mentioned, do roll up into that specific item master, which is where we're seeing these labor costs and burden costs roll up to. In the case where we want to put some specific calculations against these costs, we have this Calcs tab. We can add additional loaded costs. We can have a calculation for a standard burden or even a material burden. All of these roll into the final costing of this product that lets us identify exactly what we should be putting in as a price to our customers.